we have Paul the poet. So I will turn the microphone over to Paul.
Is that, wait a second. Do you want to sit? Do you want to stand? Stand there. Step right up. Step right up to the microphone.
So I am blatantly used to the microphone. How this came about, back February 22nd, we were here for the open night. And as people were singing, playing, talking, I was remembering something. What I remembered, is that all right? Am I being heard okay?
I just want to see which try now.
Certainly.
Try now.
All right.
Better.
So, while I was sitting here, I was thinking about having visited a person who was diminished, who was forgetting things, and they knew that they were losing themselves. We all go through this, with our triple bubbies, with our dear friends that are 86. All of these things happen. So, what I'm calling this thing is watching.
Into the mic.
Pardon me? Okay, is that so? I need to touch this guy, huh?
Almost. Oh, you don't have to put your lips on it, because that's just like not hygienic.
All right. So, is that better?
That.
So look, this guy, I just call this watching. As we dwindle, as we lose the feel of what we knew, surprised by what we feared we saw, knowing that even our ghosts dwindling get in the way. Watching, seeing, listening, hearing, feeling, offering one's own echoed pain of loss in silent reflection on what the imagined losses are. So that's what came to me as I was sitting around. And then, Flo was good enough to say, listen, you come and read this stuff, So I was remembering, and I really appreciated your song. In fact, I have a sister, and your singing reminded me so much of her. I thought it was great. Just so you know, I told my wife that too. So listen, so I worked a little bit more on remembering here, especially in these times of loss and darkness, yearning for the light. We're always stuck with that anyway, but we're especially stuck with that now in our community. So after Flo invited me to write, I wanted to write about this. And I found myself watching a line of young children going to the pre-K over at the JCC at the Jewish Community Center. They were bouncing along and they had beautiful little hats and clothes, and I was just full of, this is what I can write about the children and the hope. And then I remembered that our daughter, when she was between 2 and 3 years of age, and she's 30 years old now, she was at the Jewish Center in the daycare, and her mom had to go and pick her up because there had been a bomb threat. So a little baby one, and all the little ones are under this degree of peril. And of course, there had also been a letter bomb that went off and harmed one person over there. So this is going back, 27, 28 years ago, and we're still living in peril and worrying about our children and such. So I decided I wasn't quite ready to do a poem about children and hope. So it's going to take a little bit more work. What I wanted to do was to read 2 more poems on knowing and remembering others. Now, the first one, this is my remembering people that I've lost, eh? So this is a poem written by a friend of mine named John Fish, who is a pediatric psychiatric nurse from Montreal. Grew up in a great city. Came out here and wrote poetry and took care of people in the ER all over Alberta. So this is a brief, untitled poem that he wrote 3 years before he passed. And he's been lost now, gone for some time. Here's his poem. He's talking about people. Here it is. 56 years and a portrait of you, who are all, until now, known. Perhaps there will be a few more too, or perhaps there will be many more to add to shade, to alter in unknowable, as yet weighs what this is. Now, this poem is wondering at what it is that I think people are and how it must be a forever fluid thing, a never-ending learning. That's what John wrote about this poem. So he says, knowing people, it goes on forever. It's never over. It's never finished. Huh? Comments, these are words from another beloved friend of mine, Michelle Artin. And John said it, or rather Michelle said about the poem. This poem, his poetry, was a refined observation of his own life. And that kind of summed up a lot of John's stuff. Third poem, with permission, a very brief poem by a Nobel laureate poet. This man was an Irishman who taught at Harvard, born in Dublin, and John's favorite poet. So I wanted to read this poem for John. It's called Scaffolding. Masons, when they start upon a building, are careful to test out the scaffolding. Make sure the planks won't slip at busy points. Secure all ladders, tighten bolted joints. And yet, all this comes down when the job's done, showing off walls of sheer and solid stone. So if, my dear, there sometimes seems to be old bridges breaking between you and me, never fear. We may let the scaffolds fall, confident that we have built our wall. Thank you very much.